Yeah, welcome. This is unit number 15, Conduct 10. We'll start today, we'll continue tomorrow. It's about holding debates and arguments. Divesh, colleague Maynard, Andula, and those who are listening on the public platform. Now, we need to be a little bit conscious here as to from what point of view are you going to be addressing this particular unit and the conduct? Because if you're addressing it from someone who's holding the show, anchoring the show, you're going to benefit from this information, but it mostly relates to someone entering the space, right? The space of being in a debate or in a conversation that is mostly contenting or contesting of ideas, views, and opinions. But if you happen to be the one invited and you are facing that, this is going to be beneficial. Should you happen to be the anchor, it's also helpful for you to be mindful of the fact that there are certain do's and don'ts. And that's basically what I'm trying to highlight here. I'm seeing PPG 5F4 F62 FYY. I know this is familiar. This person joined last week. Please drop a note. I can't recognize who you are because it's just letters of your link. Yeah. So let's allow you colleagues to just say a few words hi to listeners, and I've got some pointers that we will look into in terms of what is the difference between normal conversation and a conversation where there's contestation of ideas, basically a debate. Divesh, Maynard, Andrew can greet the listeners.
Evening, Sam, and evening to the listeners. Evening, Maynard and Andu. Divesh Motilal, resident DJ of Kometsa Radio. I'm an engineer by trade and still getting adjusted to the hiccups that we have on our platform, but we will get there. So I'm confident we'll sort it out and be smooth flowing as we were before. Thank you.
Indeed. Nothing is impossible. Thanks, Divesh. Cheer up a little bit. I can tell that you dejected a bit. It's expected. Been 3 weeks of us trying to get used to the platform, but we'll get there. Thank you. Andrew? And Maynard.
Hi, Ndarisam. Hi, Antulela. Hi, Divesh. Good evening, listeners. Well, my name is Maynard, a residential DJ, host, and a co-host at Comet Radio. Also, a director at Mesala Corporate Branding. Well, good evening.
Evening to you, Maynard. Good to have you here on the platform. Looking forward to session. Yeah, Ompile said he's managed to join. I think that is the PPG I was talking about. Yeah, I'm trying to invite you, Ompile, to join. You are a speaker now. Come over to the speaker's side. Anju, are you with us? Great. Let me list the key pointers that we want to discuss for today, and we'll continue tomorrow. The first point I have here is performing a needs analysis of your show, or needs analysis to determine what is actually expected of the show, and then of course identifying your audience. Sometimes you have to do this on the spot because you may not really be that much clear as to who is actually listening. But it's important to anticipate the kind of audience that we attract to a platform when you're going to go in a heated debate in a show. I think this is sometimes subtle, but it's very helpful to keep that in mind. And then, of course, we'll talk about preparation. Very important to prepare yourself. holding the attention of audience, and then of course creating an audience profile. This is quite interesting one, Divesh, and we might even have to start with that one because I think the attributes of your audience or the profile of your audience can be as many items as you want. But I've got about 5 of them here we can talk to, or 6 of them we can talk to. And then, of course, even though you don't know the kind of challenges you are going to be facing in the show, it's always good to anticipate some key questions that you might face, creating the basic outline of your approach, and then, of course, the situation or the context, organizing your debate, and then making the conversation easy. So those are the some few pointers that we would like to touch on. There's no right or wrong. The notes I'm sharing are just general notes. We can dive into specific if you want, but let's keep it open for now. So, what is the difference between a normal conversation that we hold and a debate or an argument kind of a conversation? And when will you know that this is becoming really a contestation of ideas? Because it might be unplanned. Do you sense it? Do you feel it? Or do you want it to be declared that I'm differing with you here? Can we hold a bit of a discussion around this? But I don't think people will say, let's debate it.
Well, Sam, if I
You can
can.
also put, sorry, Divesh, I was saying people can also put information in the chat if you feel like it. Now I'm going to put the pointers in the chat as well. Yeah, carry on,
Not
Divesh.
sure if the chat is working yet, if it's allowing the listeners to actually
Yeah,
send
I mean us
responses.
in the studio, I think we can do that, right?
Yes, of course.
Mm.
Yes, Sam. What I was saying is, based on our last show, where we are respectfully engaging and sometimes, looking for a avenue to engage either in a agreement or disagreement with the guest in particular. um, that is very important. So when we start to say we want to have a debate, it's definitely something that we have to bring into the fore. We can't just jump onto it, and we have to obviously wait for that sort of invitation, either if it's a point that the guest has raised, or it's in terms of your own planning for the show. And what you were also mentioning, Sam, the aspect of planning for the engagement, it goes part and
Mm.
parcel with the other modules which we've been discussing, where planning is of the utmost importance, Sam.
Yeah. But what do we do when we default into contestation of ideas? Because you could have a point of disagreement, subtle as it might be. Or if we are 3, 4 of us, uh, like we are 4 now, we could have let's assume we're not coming from the same base. We could have ideas that are divergent. How will you then handle it, Maynard? Maynard, are you with us? I'm not sure you're speaking, Maynard. I can see that your mic is open and ready to talk, but I'm not hearing you. Is he talking, Divesh? Can you hear Maynard?
No, not at all, Sam. I don't think he's
Mm.
talking. Normally on the studio app, when
Yeah,
somebody is talking, it lights up the
it
profile
lights
picture
up. Yeah,
itself, lights up. Yeah.
yeah. And Ompile said he has joined. I'm not sure Is that the Marco one, Umpile? Let me just invite him over. Yeah, yeah. So sometimes we think debate is about difference, but it could be difference of opinions. It could be. It could also be yes. It could also be argument, but in a subtle way. Is the debate always going to have to be planned? That we're going to have a debate.
If I can come in, Sam, the debate,
Yeah,
of course, could stem from an unplanned event, something that's said on the show, a different perspective that was shared, which you might deem that it differs from your opinion. But of course, as we've mentioned in other shows, you got to show respect towards the guests. So it's not an outright hard-on debate, if I can put it that way. It's an aspect of having planned for something of that eventuality actually happening. Even
yeah,
though it may not have been planned, you must have the planning in your head for if that happens, then you're ready to handle it. If that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. Indeed. But we can. So it could also be that the topic itself is a controversial topic, and therefore you can expect that it will appear like you are in debate, and
Yes,
therefore
can you?
yeah,
Yes, yes. Earlier on, I wanted to say, like, indeed, like the debate, it doesn't have to be planned all the time because sometimes a client might raise a topic that maybe we disagree on it, and then in that case, the conversation might end up as a debate or as an
yeah,
argument because
mm,
that topic that he brought it up, maybe we hold a different view on that, and in that case then it will lead to a debate. But I think we still need to be cognizant of time as well on how do we dwell on that particular subject matter.
mm. But you agree that debate is not always negative.
No, not always negative. I think it's still gonna be beneficial to the audience. So I think we still need to be very positive on that debate because we will be debating in a respective manner at the same time. So
Mm,
it's not always negative.
mm, mm.
When
Yeah,
I was mentioning, Sam, that we must plan for the eventuality that the debate might come about. Yes, we didn't plan the specific debate point that
mm,
rose to the actual debate. But when I say we must plan, we are talking about the do's and don'ts, the lessons that we can share from Cometsa's digital online platform or digital
mm,
online streaming program, which says that these are the steps that we should do. These are the points that we need to keep in our mind if that eventuality of a debate shows itself. So that is
yeah,
why I'm
yeah,
saying the planning part, we always plan for the debate, but it doesn't mean that it's
mm,
a planned debate.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So now let's assume now we are in a debate, uh, planned or unplanned. How should we conduct ourselves? Does it help to do this needs analysis or audience analysis? Do you have time to do that? Or is a given that if you know the platform, therefore you know the kind of audience that you have, and therefore you can't assume that they don't know certain things or they know certain things?
Well, when we're planning our show right in the beginning, when we decide what our show is going to be about, what kind of guests we can have, what kind of
Mm.
audience we're actually targeting. So we're already doing those needs analysis right in
Yeah,
the beginning. And
yeah,
yes, indeed, when we are going to go into a debate, we still need to have that that aspect of what the needs of the audience are, who the audience is, and of course we must be prepared for guiding our debate, planned or
Yeah,
unplanned, towards those.
yeah. And your guest, if you're inviting a guest to a controversial topic and they suspect that there might be debate, one of the first questions they may ask is, what kind of listeners tune into your platform? Right.
Yes, indeed. And of course,
Mm.
you as the host, uh,
Mm.
selecting your guests. You will
Yeah.
obviously select your guest that, in the eventuality of a debate coming about,
Mm.
you will know, or have an expectation of what the guest can provide in the form of a debate, how he goes about doing his debating,
Mm.
as well as how that relates to the most important part, who is your audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Where is this fitting in terms of the other units? Remember, we always say that the units are very interrelated. Which element of the conversation is holding a debate and argument holding? It looks like it's a continuation of other parts of holding a conversation. Where will you slot it? Where will you normally locate it?
Well, indeed, this is an integrative approach that we have been taking with the digital online streaming modules. And of
Mm.
course, each module is that, as we've put it before, the bite of
Yeah,
the elephant. And
yeah,
even though they have their specific slot, they do actually run across the various models. So, for example, the aspects that we spoke about, showing respect for your guest, for your audience, it still
yeah,
applies. The
yeah,
affirmations that we spoke of, it still applies. Uh, Holding the space where you don't let your emotions overcome you and you lose that control that you should have on your show. That also applies.
yeah. Exactly. So it's basically in the it supports all the other elements of actually putting together and holding a space for the show. It's just that this is a different kind of it's a different angle of a conversation, and as Maynard was agreeing with me, that is not necessarily to be seen to be negative. It could be used to magnify the understanding, if I may use that term, of the of the of the conversation, and therefore one shouldn't actually take it to heart. I mean, emotions could be brought up in if the conversation take a debate format or an argument format. And as a host, let's say you are hosting or anchoring two colleagues, and you three of you, you may be called forward to calm down the the temperature. And it actually is expected of a host to be the last to be actually affected by contestation of ideas if the debate take that dimension. But what if the listeners like it?
Yes, it has to tie into, always what the vibration is that's going out to the listeners and the feedback that you're getting
Yeah,
from the listeners. Sometimes they are, as you rightfully said, they will enjoy that contestation, they'll enjoy the drama, but it
yeah,
should all be under control. It should not
yeah.
be something that loses
The
the
purpose of
ethos of the show, the purpose of the points that's being discussed. It has to be value that goes out to the listeners. It's a pity that Andu can't seem to chat. She's mentioned that one of the other models, or the modules that we also have to take into consideration, which is very important as well, that of listening, the skill
mm,
of embedding the various modes of listening, so that you
mm,
also pick up on those crucial points which are in the debate that you can actually take further and enhance for the benefit of
mm,
the listener.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's and I think the reminder there from Andrews that it is not about you, but you almost like in the room, but it's not about you. So don't project that on you. You just happen to be in the room, and you're actually holding the space, and try direct it to what you wanted to achieve to start with. And I think you can link that the topic itself and the objectives of the show themselves, they are a guide. So even if it's heated, if it's addressing the objectives, you could actually bring in, edify or affirm the people to say, you know what, this is wonderful because that's exactly what we wanted to bring onto the table for our listeners to understand what is involved here. I guess it's only when the topics are too close to you that sometimes you do appreciate the benefits of sometimes having a debate before you arrive at alignment. I mean, if you think of it, the most progressive meetings in business or in any kind of a situation is where people don't immediately agree from the beginning. And then using methodologies like the Lekgotla, then you allow yourself to debate with respect. You get to see each other's perspective, and ultimately you get to agree that I've been enlightened, and thank you so much. I now know your point, see the point of view. I mean, debate is supposed to ultimately try to get the two opposing arguments to align or agree to disagree, but in a way that is progressive. I think it's easy said than done if you are in the middle of it and you haven't got this level of consciousness and emotional intelligence to can be able to survive the emotions that are evoked and the feelings. You could actually find yourself having compromised yourself the way you respond. And I think it's good that we have a module like this, even though it might not seem like it's really our priority that we always have arguments. But it's good to have a module like this because it's good to read about it, to be aware of it. That should it happen, it still doesn't defeat the objective of holding conversation. I mean, you see it in mature conversations in politics, for instance, now, when people have really reflected on the standpoint of various other people, and they can still push for their opinion, but it doesn't mean that other people's opinion don't matter. They may just not be applying to you, but they still matter. And if you open minded, you can still learn the different perspective.
One thing I'll disagree though with you, Sam, since we're talking about debate, is the vast amount of political debates that I've come across recently, especially since we're going into election season this week. Uh, a lot of them are not driven by fact. Mostly, I find them being driven by emotion, which is something I think that we will not promulgate in our program in terms of debating with respect. Often they are
Yeah,
disrespectful to each other. They're driven by emotion and not necessarily by fact. So, from our do's and don'ts, definitely
yeah,
we need to show respect towards one another and definitely respect our audience.
yeah,
Also, some of the debates I find you do have a live audience, and then the audience themselves are not even respecting the debate that's going on. They're actually there just to make a lot of the background noise, and you can't actually hear what each person is
yes.
actually saying.
But isn't that an area of development? Maybe at the bigger level. I mean, I'm sure it could be an objective, depending on whether the do's and don'ts are being shared and adhered to, as you say. I sometimes I feel like we just seem to be accepting it to be the way it is. But I really, truly believe that if people could strive to get to a point where they could differ without really necessarily being emotional. I guess it's difficult in politics, but it could be anything else. Because I do believe that when people are calmer, even though the opinions are vastly different, they are able to advance their views much better. What do you think?
I agree with you. The calmity of
Mm,
listening uh, is very important. And if we
mm,
talk about the specific reference that I made, I find it to be more of a case of being disruptive. It's
mm,
planned disruption, but for the point that you do not want others to hear what the person who's speaking has to say, just in case
mm,
they're making something of value. So you rather disrupt them. Uh,
mm,
yeah, we are developing. It's a learning path, but I think we need that maturity level to
mm,
be able to listen, give another. I mean, the whole principle of Induku, of Lhotla even, which comes from Africa, we
mm,
seem to have
mm.
lost that. When
Yeah.
we look at these examples and politics actually, mixing that up, where we are supposed to give the person a chance to say what they want to say, and
Mm,
then respond to whatever their point is with fact, with respect, and acknowledge as well if they are making some point. But of course, the
mm,
politics doesn't seem to be going in line with the cultural ethos that we have here in Africa.
mm. But I mean, it's a very important point because it's a good point of reference. I do watch debates from other parts of the world, and different parts of the world are at different levels. And it's also a culture thing. But I find it quite very, very enjoyable when people of diverse views are able to give each other a chance and are able to not to attack each other because they bring substance. I think it's an ideal. It's going to take a very long time. I'm just scared that the culture we are accepting may not even allow us to get to that level. And I don't know at what level to intervene. Because when I was growing up in schools up to high school, debate was really quite a very interesting subject. And and there were rules and it was and then the adjudicators give you points and you always enjoyed it when they say that you argued your point so well, you were not emotional and your message came across, and then you are number one, the other one number two. And I think that culture is a lost opportunity in my view. I don't know who has experienced debate at school, whether it's still there these days.
I,
Because
I, I,
they will give you a topic, Divesh. They'll give you a topic for a month, and for the whole month you are researching a topic and preparing it. And they normally used to say pro and against,
yeah.
and then you get to have mobilize your own support. And when you go to the wall, you have got your own cheerleaders that will be cheering you as you bring in the points.
And like we rightfully said, it was an art. It was about preparation. It isn't really even about what you personally believe. Sometimes you'd
Mm,
get one side of the coin which you personally may disagree with, but it was
mm,
about delivering your argument. It was about preparing and being able to come with an argument which your listeners, your audience could at least reciprocate some of the points and bring about the debate in a constructive manner where the opposing party or the opposite view actually can
mm.
pick up on some of your points.
Yeah.
And I've seen as well more for entertainment value, but on a very competitive level when they do debating, uh, they're given a limited amount of time and
Yes,
they just rant off, as many points in support of their viewpoint, and then they actually count the amount of points, and then you win because you gave more points than the other person. But
exactly.
I do agree as well that we sort of lost the the the, the sort of the value systems that we might have had, the some of the do's and don'ts that we actually are raising in our online development or streaming
Mm,
program is things that has a very strong bearing on culture that we currently have,
mm,
which needs to be uh, I wish I could say evolve, but I think we were at a higher level when we start talking about our upbringing, our lessons, the types of things we did growing up, as opposed to now, because it's very different now. But in an ideal situation, we need to sort of find our way back to some of
yeah,
those values that we have.
yeah. And that's exactly the whole idea of using the Lakota way of engagement, because the problem is when you have these uninvited debates. Let's say it's at work and you are in a business meeting and it was meant to be a very nice meeting. The leaders are there, and then you start arguing, and then you are not calm enough because you're not conscious of the do's and don'ts of hosting conversation or holding debates. And then you lose it, right? And it creates such an animosity. So I think what I'm trying to say is you are not always going to be ready for debate, but debate is always going to happen. And if you are not conscious of the fact that actually differing opinions is healthy, and if you are not convinced, it's okay to engage in a conversation, in a contestation, but you need to bring arguments with respect. But you also have to listen to other person's arguments until you are convinced. And that brings me to the aspect of preparation. I think this preparation is not just preparation for a show, but it's preparation for you to function very well in an environment where you have to advance opinions and other people differ with you, and you have to defend your opinion. And they talk about the debate is not necessarily about you, it's about whoever the beneficiary is. In this case, if you are part of a team, it's a fellow team members and maybe a certain proportion of. And they're saying that for instance, if it was a debate in a public forum, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what do you know about your audience? So the focus is the audience. It's as we're entering in this argument, in this debate, we perhaps maybe lost the focus that we wanted to educate and enlighten other people, that's not only us. The other point is, what do they care about? What is important to them? Do they have any misconceptions about your topic? So the topic here, for instance, we're going to go on a strategy planning session, right? And the first day we are going to do pest analysis, political, economical, social, technological, environment analysis. And then all of us are invited to contribute input into this discussion to establish the state of affairs so that we can actually base our strategy forward on the environmental scaling. And then somebody says, okay, I think we are going to have a change of government. When you come out, first P is political. Somebody says, I think we're going to have a political change. We're going to have a change of administration. And somebody says, no, I don't agree. Hasn't the debate already started there? And I'm sure many people boxed each other, not physically, but in the recent past weeks. Let me leave it there and ask you to reflect a bit. Maynard says his network is unstable on mobile phone.
If I can also
I don't
reflect
think that she wanted us to
point.
move away from spending too time on politics, but I don't have any other better. I think other than colleagues competing, in a scenario planning or in a environmental scanning. And then I don't know why I just chose P for politics.
Well, Sam, it's of relevance now. It's a hot topic, and we're getting a lot of opportunities to actually experience the debating that's going on now because of the political parties raising their points. But like I said, one thing I wanted to add, and it's in relation to your reflection point. Um, I've seen, though, or rather heard on Metro FM in particular, a debate where it could have been disruptive. It could have been your usual where each party is just boxing the other party and there isn't much fact. It's more emotion driven. But it wasn't because of the host, the
Mm,
skills of the host, the way the host took control of the space, the way she interjected with firmness but with respect when the conversation that whoever was speaking at the time was going in the wrong direction. She challenged with respect as well. She took the Induka from one speaker with the point that they had raised, appropriately placed it with another speaker so they could have this constructive debate. So
mm,
there is power in the skills that we're sharing, the points that
yeah.
you're raising, which as a host you could then take the best out of your guests that you have on show
Mm,
in the form of debate, where you turn the potential argument, because that's
mm,
in essence what it becomes, where an argument is not necessarily based on fact, but more towards emotion. You
yeah.
take that towards a space of it being a constructive debate, which is more
Mm.
enjoyable. Arguments are not enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if they don't have facts and they are also emotional and disrespectful, right?
Yes, indeed.
Mm, mm. So now the next expertise or competency is that of holding the attention of an audience, because there's no use to be arguing in the studio and the audience have just switched off. How do you hold them interested? You know, and that means you must really be almost on your toes in terms of observing or being aware of the things that matter to them, especially if you've done your research. I don't know about you, Divesh, Andrew, and Maynard. I've taken quite a lot of the pointers here from a public speaking course on the Commerce Academy. But I can relate to these things because there was a time in South Africa, even not so long ago, where conferencing was big. And the conference organizers will organize people who are occupying positions in companies to come and deliver talks or make presentations. And then when you walk into when you walk into a conference meeting and you look at the people who are there, you know that you are going to get challenged. So we will go as far as even asking for the list of attendees so that you know exactly what to expect. And I call that as a mini research, because if you know somebody who's very strong on diversity and you are going to be sharing your company's diversity program, you can be guaranteed that you are going to be challenged. And if you haven't done that workshop, that research, you are not going to be able to hold the attention of the audience, because especially in those type of conferences. And I found this do's and don'ts and this planning stuff being very, very helpful, because if you take yourself serious, you will never walk into any conversation where you know the topic is heated, like primary equity, affirmative action, and you haven't prepared fully. And then you get surprised when there's debate. Immediately you open your mouth. Welcome, Ndadera Mutla. Thanks for the message. The Mago is Ram Mutla, apparently. Welcome. I hope you can hear us well. I can invite you into the studio. Please accept. And again, since COVID and now people going online, the conferencing business has really taken a nosedive. And we no longer have those robust conferences. And they will even have a 1 hour reserved or 30 minutes reserved for question and answers. And you think it's going to be asked about clarification, but you are going to be challenged by what you have just said, that they may feel is not really what they believe or agree with. That I used to experience that quite a lot during my ABSA days.
To add to your point, Sam, the
Mm.
a lot of the modules we have mentioned from the Cometsa digital online streaming program, they're not necessarily only focused towards the aspect of broadcasting and being an online budding social media entrepreneur. They are also
Mm.
applicable to other aspects of life and situations, which is not
Mm.
necessarily online. I mean, a lot of the aspects we're talking about today could be applicable to the courtroom, even for lawyers who use the same kind of principles towards, especially understanding who the judge may be, or if there's a jury, getting a sense of how the jury would perform, and then preparing your point that you want to put across to them to
Yeah.
really tug at their specific value systems if need be, even if
Mm.
in your work life environment,
Yeah.
having an understanding of your boss, your co-workers, to have that constructive discussion with them is
Mm.
something as well which also could use the skill sets that we are sharing, the do's and don'ts that we're sharing. Of course, you would adjust them to specific purposes. But also to
Yeah.
our point we raised before, a lot of that's lost. And
Mm.
often now it's about gossip, it's about misunderstanding a point and then actually thriving on that misunderstanding, where it becomes a point where you can go and tell it to the neighbor if need be, to say this is what this person did, this is what they said, instead of having
Mm.
that opportunity, using the skills of having a constructive discussion, this constructive debate, so that the
Mm.
points that you feel, your emotions that you want to relay, are done so in a constructive manner.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I found as I was going through, I found them very, very helpful. And I think more so for just yourself, for instance, this thing of knowing the profile of your audience, it could be any kind of audience. Here they listed about 6 things that you need to take into account. The education level of the people you are addressing. And they're saying that, and I'll share the notes with the colleagues on the line here. For instance, if when you're profiling your audience under education, they say that be aware that you can use sophisticated vocabulary if the audience is educated. And I think that is also implied. But if you know the education level, the average education level of the audience, it's no use for you to talk about the people. And I think it's also a sign of respect, you know. So if the top and education could mean anything, it could be technical education, could be a general education. If you are invited to address the people or to participate in a debate and you fail to establish the education level of the audience, you're probably not going to be understood. So that's a very, very good point. And I don't always get this right. I remember addressing a class which was a lower level, and I had to be reminded by the person who had invited me that, please, can you just tone down? It was about strategy. And he said to me, please, can you just tone down because the level at which you are pitching this, I don't think people are. And it was quite an enlightenment and a reminder to me that the audience is very important. The second point is the familiarity with the topic. How familiar are people with the topic? As I gave the example in the 90s, we were talking a lot about employment equity or diversity. And then people were not, all of them ahead of it, but they will have never read the act like I will have done it because it was my specialization. So the topic is also very important. Then the jargon that you are using, how familiar are people with, and then how interested are people in the topic, and what is the attitude of the people towards the topic. I mean, think of it, Divesh, in the 80s, we used to address the employees around, in the 90s, around employment equity. And you walk into a class, you find that into a room, you find 80% of the people are white African and male. You immediately know that they will not be interested in the topic. So you change the whole approach completely. You have to now approach them. You are really going to preach because these are the people who choose not to agree or to be interested.
And just something I wanted to add to your point, Sam. It's things that you can plan for. You could do your research in terms of who your audience is, in terms of their education, what their familiarity with the topic might be, what jargon that you could use and not use. But even when you go live, when you in the whether it's a studio, whether it's a face-to-face setting, all that might actually change. You might have said, okay, as you use an example, that you might have been pitching something a bit too high, but sometimes you get surprised that you pitch too low as well, where you think that the
Yeah,
education level is too low and you start to
yeah.
pitch it low. And then you start to find, okay, they may not have degrees, but
I don't
uh,
understand.
they understand and they have actually very good ideas and valuable insights to share with you. And this is my point, that you plan, but when you live again, in your mind, instantaneously, you might readjust your plan based on the
Mm,
same aspects of education, familiarity with topic. You might find they are much more familiar with the topic than you had
mm,
expected. So it's an adjustment against them, but definitely those points that you raise is very.
mm. So that brings us to the other conduct, which is being fully present, attentive, and actively listening so that you are able to assess very quickly from the beginning, right?
Yes, just yes, indeed, Sam. Just so that our listeners can believe our point that we say, these bite size of the elephant that we bring, they actually do integrate, and some of the parts is bigger than the whole, Sam.
Yeah, yeah. Right. I think we. I don't know about you, diversion colleagues. I'm enjoying this in the sense that the more we are addressing other conducts and the do's and don'ts, units and conducts, I'm actually finding it so helpful because it's like we are repeating quite a number of principles that we have covered in other conducts. And I feel sometimes we don't have to belabor the point, but just take note of the fact that it's a continuation and it's like we are knitting it into a very solid, tight uh, 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 body of knowledge here. I wish I could hear from Andrew and Maynard, especially around this point, because I realize that the more I go through the point, it's like, but we have touched on this before, you know? And but it's a point of emphasis, which I like, because we repeat it 100 times until we get it right. Because this, you are not going to be able to look at the notes when you are in the thick of things.
I think another analogy comes to mind, Sam, that of
Mm.
we are sharing ingredients of a recipe,
Yeah,
and even though they are individual in nature, but when they come together, whether it's a meal, whether it's a cake that we're baking, this recipe, each one of the ingredients has its important part to play. And when
yeah,
you finally eating that cake, you
yeah,
will enjoy each of those little contributions that each
yeah.
ingredient makes to the.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. No, no, I'm really loving this, and it's really it shows that the strategy of splitting it into chunks it's not a bad one because as we cover them up, we are integrating at the same time. Yeah, so I know Umpile is on the line and Ramutla is on the line. We have a challenge with Andrew and Maynard. Everybody's complaining about the network, but I hope you're getting this way. Tomorrow we will continue from here where we are now. What I've shared, I've put together today, I will share with the colleagues so that they can reflect. And another thing, Divesh, I'm no longer depending on that on the fact that we'll be recording the show. I want to make sure that before we come to these conversations, we at least have some piece of information that contribute to the unit itself, because this is train the trainer. And the colleagues that are undergoing this intervention, they must also be able to access where we're talking from, our talking sheet.
Am I audible this time, Rizam?
You are better now.
Today I'm struggling. But one thing that I just wanted to highlight is that the good thing is that all these conducts are interrelated. That's why when we come into this conduct of holding a debate or an argument, we still step on all the conduct that we pass through is because they're all one thing at the same time. And one important aspect to note with the holding debate is that your emotional intelligence needs to be sharp, because otherwise, if your guest can argue out of scope, you might
Mm,
lose it if you don't have a good emotional intelligence. So in that aspect, you need to remain on the show, make sure that you keep the show on the roll, because you are the one who knows all the conduct, and the guest that doesn't know the conducts to
yes.
follow. So the
Mm,
client might always go out of the box, and that
mm.
will need you to be bold enough to handle the show.
And yeah, and it's like learning to drive the car. You learn to change the gears, to put the brake, to accelerate, to steer. But at the end, is the integrated, and you don't even recognize when you are applying all these bits and pieces of techniques you are learning.
For sure,
Can you
because
see that that analogy is it's actually true. That's why then when people say, "Man, that is so experienced. Did you listen how you host this show? You won't even remember which contact you applied, but you applied it."
you just apply them. It's just like that, for sure, indeed. But when
Yeah,
they teach you know how to balance the clutch and whatnot, so the car doesn't roll and things like that. But when you are getting used to it, you will do it, you practice it, but you won't even see that you have practiced that already.
yeah.
But that's how it is, indeed.
So you're basically Maynard saying that there's no hurry. We need to follow all the conducts up to the end and be surprised how integral you will be when you have done all of them.
Mm, true, Narism.
Divesh, are you able to put a tape measure, if I may use that as a measuring unit, and say, yes, I can see my what do you call it in my language, but it's no longer my well is getting full.
Sorry,
Do you feel it in your
sorry, Sam,
system?
I didn't get the last part.
Are you feeling it in your system that every day, every week, as we repeat ourselves, though addressing different units and conducts, it's as if you are filling up your container of
Oh,
insight.
the fuel tank.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But what I would also say from a personal experience is that as I'm going through all the conducts again and applying them to benefits of becoming a better broadcaster, I also find that it helps in your own personal life. So I'm actually looking for those, golden nuggets where you find that these things can actually help in other situations. If
Mm.
you're applying these principles in aspects of your life, then, like Maynard said, they become automatic. They become entrenched in your personality, and you actually do them without even realizing that you're doing them. And that's where you actually want to get to a point of
Mm.
unconsciously being competent, Sam.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very beautiful example, especially that model, Divesh. I know you like it quite a lot. The unconscious topic. Really, we always say it's like learning to ride a bicycle. Like when you have learned, riding a bicycle is a joy. And this is this, and with something like this, is you can easily terminate it and thinking that it's not making a difference, and you actually terminate it so early, it's too early, before you experience the power of integrated knowledge of all 40 units. And you were saying, Divesh, 40 is a very big number. But now we realize that we're repeating ourselves, but we don't necessarily just repeating ourselves. We are building up. And so it's going to become your way of being, not necessarily just for being on radio, but a way of engaging with people in conversation. And that is a lifelong learning. And that's the benefit of it. And again, it's a matter of attitude, you know. If you have an open-minded attitude towards a new thing you add every week, once a week, can you imagine? One additional insight a week, it definitely elevates you to another level that you won't even yourself be able to recognize. So that's really how I see this. Even myself having to read, well, I'm no longer only researching because I take quite a lot of this content from our business academy. I'm telling you, there I'm even more convinced because all these things I'm sharing with you, they are actually researched by professionals who specialize in a business education. And that's so beautiful how they sit in. So going forward, we will more and more deal into those business academy subject. Today we dived into the public speaking course on the business academy, and you can see I couldn't even cover everything. So tomorrow, Ivashini and I and Maynard, we could touch on more others. By tomorrow, I think you will have all the elements captured in the document, and I will share with everybody here, including Umpile Dadera Mutla as well. Perhaps we can look towards closing the conversation. I'm just looking at the pointers here. The few pointers, and that will be my checking out, and you can check out that I got from the public speaking course. It's about organizing your debate or your conversation in this case. It does appear that debate is not really the 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 main thing, is a very subset of the bigger conversation, is to say keeping your audience in mind is the key to a well-organized conversation or debate. Start with something that will capture their attention and give them a clear idea of your topic. And that speaks to our checking in. That checking in is to make sure that you hook the audience. I like the word hook. Also, when you write a book or a novel, they always say that the first chapter or the first lines, it must hook the readers. So I'm saying that also when you go into a conversation and you are party to the conversation, the moment you open your mouth, what you say must be intending at hooking your people so that they don't leave. The second point is organize your debate in a way that will be easy for your audience to understand. We spoke about simplicity, and I guess that also speaks to the language. And I always say English is not everybody's mother tongue, but if you stick to the simple sentences, the simple past sentences, am I using the right word, the part of speech? Simple sentences, not long-winded sentences, which we all tend to do because we feel that after we spoke, we feel we haven't made a point, and then we continue without full stop until we get lost. I'm sure you have experienced that. I've experienced it quite a number of times. But I talk, and then you forgot what you actually said, wanted to communicate. So that's a discipline we must all learn. Plan to review your main points briefly and then wrap things up positively. Perhaps giving your audience a call to action. That towards the end. And then lastly, they say that the essential theme to remember is that you are giving your debate to benefit your audience. That means you need to organize in a way that will make sense to them. So again and once again, it's a repetition. So yeah, so I will stop there as a wrap up, and then ask you to wrap up and check out, and then I can also then just close up as we always. I'm not sure, Maynard, you're able to, and Divesh.
From my side, Sam, have mutual respect for your guest, for your audience. Hold the space in terms of the platform, and be careful that your debate doesn't turn into an argument. That's from my side, Sam.
Beautiful. Thanks, Divesh. Debate is not our core business. It can happen, but manage it as always. Yeah. We lost Maynard. He's struggling with his network. I think, what do you call? Yeah, then Datera Mutla is contributing via WhatsApp here. It say, yes, indeed, we must hook the audience so that they should not leave. That's the main objective in Datera Mutla. Because it doesn't matter how many audience there are, those who choose to be part of it, they must want to remain up to the end. And that's the subject of hooking them.
Am I audible?
Maynard? You are, yes,
Okay.
you are.
Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
you are.
No, thanks. I wanted to say, holding debates or argument. I think holding a space is also very important in that way. We need to debate in a respectful manner, and also considering our audience at the same time. We need to understand our audience, what they are expecting to rip off from our show. So when you hold a debate, it needs to benefit your audience at the same time.
Hmm. And that is the real absolute. That's the absolute objective. Why you are there to start with. So we can't ignore them.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Maynard. Andrew, I'm not sure whether you are able to. You can check out using the chat box, because I know you've been challenged by the network. And Umpile, you can drop me a WhatsApp if you want to share some closing remarks with the colleagues, like Ndadera Mutla has done. We want to hear what do you think. The key thing was we must have spoken about this unit and this conduct, because it's part of our the trainer, and hope in the future we will be able to truly bring it to the attention, whoever we are coaching, mentoring, or training. Yes, the closing remarks from Andrew that came through the WhatsApp. Debate can be healthy, and remember, it's not about you. Good advice indeed, Andrew. And we have to be reminded all the time when we are boiling, because we are caught unaware emotionally and in terms of feelings. You are just in the radio show to bring insights to listeners. And if people don't agree with you, it's nothing personal. If you happen to be holding the space, you have a duty to remind your guests, your conversation partners, that the objective is to enlighten the listeners. They may not agree with us, but they may learn something from us. So when somebody differs with you, once again, it's a matter of just magnifying the message. It's nothing personal. How wonderful it would be, even if in our own personal lives that we learned not to take things personal when people differ with us, because that will preserve a lot of relationships. Yeah, Peter says he had some technical issues. He has learned that emotional intel is very important. Emotional intelligence is very important. Managing emotions during debates is very important, not taking things too personally. I think the message is cuts across, and I think that is the key message, Divesh. You have sensitized us from the beginning. The key messages, I think, has arrived, and that is debates and arguments are there, but they are not meant to create animosity among people, and they should not be entertained if they are taking us in the wrong trajectory. I think that is from the trainer point of view, it's a wonderful takeaway, because you're going to have to enlighten other people that you might have to train, that please don't become too emotionally invested in debates, thinking that this is what makes you a better anchor. Thank you so much. Wow. I know we started very slow, but I think it ended quite very well. I'm really loving what we are sharing here. I just want to share with you that we're halfway almost, and next Monday is going to be what? Is it going to be the 3rd? And we are moving to unit number 16, and that is conduct 11. We're going back to listening actively and generatively, and I think I suggest we bring a little bit of a reminder on the Lokotla principles here. And I can't see which course we're mapping it against. On my notes, I need to send the new revised additional input to the invite so that we can see the subsequent unit and conducts. I will be able also to see which course we'll refer to. But anyway, that is it. We're getting there. Tomorrow, Divesh, I'm sure I will have finished the rest of the notes. We can just reflect on that again, and hopefully we will magnify the message. Thank you so much, colleagues. And once again, thanks for your patience with these platforms. They are here to stay, and we will master it. And I can tell you, once we have mastered it, it's going to be a beautiful platform. I'm going to change the invites on the calendar as well, from Zoom to this platform, so that people can also come straight into here whenever they check their calendar. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. We'll talk again next till tomorrow. Thank you so much. You take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.